Thank you very much, Jane. Hello and welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. Former mining communities say they are missing out on millions of pounds of investment from the sale of social welfare sites, which they helped to pay for.
If you ask anybody in this community or any other communities, they'll say they don't see any of the investment. And the truth is, the investment sits on their balance sheet, and where it is really needed is in communities like this.
The national mining charity says the money does support communities across the UK. Also tonight, the parents paying for drugs and alcohol for their children struggling with addiction. They say they didn't know where to go for help. After months of delays and protests, an old oak tree in Otley has finally been cut down. An exhibition celebrating 70 years of the children's character Miffy opens in Leeds.
And it's been a cold one out there today with those brisk easterly winds, but how long will this cold weather last? I'll have the very latest towards the end of the programme.
Good evening from the team here at Look North. Former coal miners who paid for social clubs and sports centres from their earnings say their local areas should be receiving millions of pounds of investment after the sites were sold. A BBC investigation has identified 27 sites across England which have been sold over the past 14 years. Around half of them were here in Yorkshire and North East Derbyshire and include recreational grounds, former tennis courts and miners' welfare clubs. The total value of the sales is more than £12 million, with most of the money going to the national mining charity Kiswo after taking off expenses. Over the past few months, we've spoken to people living in former coalfield communities who were asking where the money from the sales is being spent. Kiswo says it can't ring-fence funds and the money supports communities all across the UK. Our investigations reporter Stephanie Miskin has more.
This is the old site of Maltby Miners' Welfare, and this was closed sort of 6 years ago now, against the will of the people of Maltby and surrounding areas, because it was a community asset which people have loved for decades.
Known to people around here as the Stew, it closed down in 2018. Terry led a community Facebook campaign with plans to lease it from the mining charity Kiswo. However, it said no acceptable bid was made. In 2020, the land was sold to the highest bidder for £246,000. Plans have now been approved for 8 houses by a local developer.
If you ask anybody in this community or any other communities, they'll say they don't see any of the investment. And the truth is, the investment sits on their balance sheet, and where it is really needed is in communities like this.
The leader of the House beware of the distressing decision by Kiswo to sell the Maltby Miners' Welfare Institute.
The former Conservative MP for the Rother Valley, who lost his seat in last year's general election, wants to see former welfare sites protected.
There needs to be some sort of new regulation or body which oversees this heritage to maintain it going forward, because otherwise, in 10, 15 years' time, there'll be nothing left. This is not a party political issue. It's actually about best for the local community.
Each and every week, about 250 kids take to the pitches on land owned by Kiswo. And for a club in a former coalfield, it's hand to mouth.
As the club is we charge £3 a week subs. We've got some parents that can't afford it, but it's not a problem. End of the day, we need to stand up for young uns.
Mick believes this is where the money from its community's mining past could see more investment in the future generations of Maltby.
We've got this dream of having this new pavilion. And if Siswell say what I've been told, which talks of being good, that they're going to make a large donation towards it, people probably would think a lot highly of them if they did that.
Kiswo said discussions remain ongoing and may include future investment. Over in neighbouring Dinnington, just 5 miles away, this 12 acres of green space was once described as a thriving sports ground. Now it's an ever-growing housing estate.
The old guys could come and have a cup of tea, sit and read out newspapers.
The land was sold by Kiswo for £875,000 4 years ago. Now this is the only nod to its former existence.
We now don't mind as welfare. We're not far from where Park House used to be.
Why is it still important to you?
We don't have another area like this was in Dinnington. This was our only green space. And we've got some of the most poorest areas.
Dave, who dedicated years of his life at the coalface, got the ground listed as a community asset, only for it later to be removed, which meant the land could be developed on.
The men that raised the money for this worked underground, on their hands and knees, with a pick and a shovel to buy this land. We need to invest in our areas, not take money out of it.
Stephanie Miskin, BBC Look North, Rotherham.
Well, Stephanie is here in the studio with me. Stephanie, what is Kiswo's response to the sale of these 27 sites?
Well, Kiswo, although based in Rotherham, is a charity dedicated to supporting former coalfield communities right across the UK. It was once funded by the coal industry, but is now completely self-sufficient. It says it is legally obligated to permanently keep some of the money on its balance sheet, which totals around £30 million, and it uses this to invest and generate income each year. Now, we did ask Kiswo for an interview, however they declined, instead sending us a statement saying that most of the sites sold have been closed for years beforehand, and the money it gets from sales is less than seems to be believed, as it had to pay off debts owed by sites trustees. However, it did receive the majority of the £12.2 million raised from the sales.
These are big figures. What does it mean for the places that we saw in your piece?
Well, as you saw, places that lost the miners' welfare sites feel like they're really losing out. And when we asked Kiswo what investment they'd made in these areas, it said it cannot ring-fence funds for specific use in only one area. And in the case of Dinnington, the ground sold for £875,000 4 years ago. Now, Kiswo said it spent a considerable amount of funds on confidential, ongoing support for people, and had also invested around £100,000 towards a nearby 3G football pitch.
So what does this mean for the rest of the UK? This is affecting communities right across the country, isn't it?
Absolutely. So Coalfield MPs raised concerns about Kiswo in an all-party report in 2023, recommended that the charity outline its strategic direction to allow for better scrutiny and understanding. And just a couple of weeks ago, a group of Labour Coalfields MPs wrote a letter to the Chief Executive of Kiswo asking why funds cannot be retained in the local area. In the letter seen by the BBC, MP said, "We do not accept that this would not be feasible." And when we asked Kiswo for its response on this letter, they said they didn't want to comment.
Stephanie, thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there. And you can watch a special on this subject on BBC One this Sunday on Politics North at 10 o'clock, as well as reading more online at bbc.co.uk/Sheffield. And we will continue to follow that story here on Look North. Next tonight, parents say they've been driven to take drastic measures to support their children who are suffering from addiction. They say they've resorted to paying for drugs and alcohol for their loved ones and have gone to extreme lengths to keep their children out of trouble because they didn't know where to turn to get help. They're now being supported by New Vision Bradford, an organisation that offers help to families dealing with addiction. Arzu Dutta reports.
This obviously wasn't the retirement that we planned together because of looking after our loved one.
Meet Emily. Her identity has been concealed alongside other group members so that they can speak freely about looking after someone using substances. Emily's child suffered from a traumatic event. At first, they self-medicated using over-the-counter drugs, but this developed into a dependency.
We had quite a few suicide attempts also. And that's how we found out really what had happened and how bad it was getting. And she came back home to live with us, and she now uses illegal substances. It can happen to anybody. It doesn't discriminate at all.
Because we talked previously, didn't we, about boundaries, setting healthy boundaries for yourself.
Yeah. This group was originally set up by parents whose children were struggling with substance abuse. Today, New Vision provides people with emotional support and helps them create healthy boundaries.
It can range from they really don't know how to cope, they can't talk to people, if they try and talk to their own family and friends, they're faced with a lot of stigma around drug and alcohol use. People who use substances can be presenting with a range of emotions that the loved ones haven't seen before, and it's very difficult for them.
The charity says it's just as important to provide support for friends and family as it is for people using substances. Charlotte, not her real name, found out 23 years ago that her loved one had been given drugs while being sexually abused.
I didn't know anything at all about the world that my loved one was now in, and I tried to protect them by doing things like hiding it from other members of the family, and I paid for things because I didn't want my loved one to start stealing or getting involved in crime.
Some people might question the steps that you took in trying to help your loved one.
To be honest, I thought I was being a good mum. I felt guilty and ashamed for a long time. I felt I had done something wrong, that I'd failed as a parent. Find a service like this because the support is invaluable.
Members of this group hope that by sharing their story, it will give strength to others, helping those struggling with substance abuse. Arzu Dutta, BBC Look North, Keighley.
And if you or someone you know has been affected by addiction, details of help are available at bbc.co.uk/action line or by calling 08000 155 947. That's 08000 155 947. Now you're watching Friday's Look North. Still to come on tonight's programme.
You've read the books, now enter the world of Miffy. She's 70 this year and visiting Leeds. This rabbit knows how to party. Join her later.
Now, you might remember the story of 84-year-old Ron Croker, who fought off an attempted robbery at a laundrette in Maltby near Rotherham using a pair of jeans. Well, in court today, 42-year-old Lloyd Smith pleaded guilty to attempted robbery and said he'd like to write a letter of apology to Mr Croker. He's been told a prison term is inevitable. Our reporter Ollie Constable was at court for us.
This is Lloyd Smith, demanding an 84-year-old pensioner hands over his wallet. He tells him if he doesn't give him money, he'll hurt him. But Ron Croker, armed with just a pair of jeans, isn't giving in. He walks Smith back towards the front door of the laundrette. Smith leaves, but comes back for a second try. That's when Ron fights back. This was him speaking to us last month.
And I thought, that's my wallet, and that's my money, and we've worked hard for that. And he's not having it, so I would not have let him have it, no way.
Smith appeared in court today on a video link from HMP Doncaster. His defence barrister says Smith wanted to write a letter of apology to Mr Croker. Well, the judge told Smith that despite his guilty plea for attempted robbery, that prison sentence was inevitable. That sentencing hearing set to take place here at Sheffield Crown Court in April.
The attempted mugging left Ron with bruises on his hands, but otherwise unscathed. He now hopes to put the whole incident behind him. Ollie Constable, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
Some more news from around the region now, and police are looking for thieves who rammed into a shop near Ilkley and stole a cash machine. It happened at around 2 o'clock this morning at the Co-op in Addingham. 3 vehicles, including a digger, were used to smash into the front of the store. West Yorkshire Police are asking anyone with any information to get in touch. A woman has been charged with taking part in the large-scale disorder in Leeds last summer. 34-year-old Sinead Doherty was charged with violent disorder and arson relating to disturbances in Hare Hills in July last year. A 17-year-old boy, who can't be named due to his age, was also charged with the same offences. A memorial to people who were killed and injured in a World War II munitions explosion in North Yorkshire has been unveiled today. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak laid a wreath at the event commemorating the 12 people who died in the blast at Catterick Bridge railway station in 1944. It happened as explosives were being transferred ahead of the D-Day landings. 102 people were also injured. A former Labour advisor said she was subjected to misogynist abuse after raising concerns the party was failing to declare thousands of pounds of annual income. The Labour Party in Calderdale is accused of not properly accounting for its ownership of the Trades Club, a popular music venue in Hebden Bridge. It is also a registered election address for the local MP Josh Fenton Glynn. A spokesperson for the party said it took all complaints seriously and was seeking independent financial advice. David Rhodes has more.
Artists that have sold millions of records have played at the Trades Club. Katie Tunstall, a frequent visitor. But the Labour Party, the owner of this building, are accused of not properly accounting for it and the income it generates.
I had a year from hell last year, to be honest. They're flying the whole enterprise under the radar.
Last year, as the Calder branch treasurer Rebecca Bowden says, she tried to get Labour to properly account for the Trades Club.
I raised it, and I raised it in terms of, well, you know, I'm an accounting professor and actually this isn't right. And immediately I had 3 men shouting at me. I felt quite frightened. And the trouble with the account for the local Labour Party, the income, expenditure and the assets and liabilities of the Trades Club are entirely missing.
The intimate music venue in Hebden Bridge is run by a separate cooperative who annually pay £8,000 in rent to Labour. By law, the rent and ownership of the £300,000 building should be declared to the Electoral Commission because it reaches a certain threshold, according to Professor Bowden. She says no accounts are being given to the watchdog and that the party has never paid tax on £100,000 of rental income generated by the building in the past 20 years. Professor Bowden recently advised the National Party on its key election pledge to introduce 20% VAT on private school fees.
It is a tough decision to remove the tax break for private schools.
I can't go out there banging the drum around why private schools should pay VAT, and at the same time knowing that my own party wasn't meeting its own liabilities.
The recently elected Labour MP for the area uses the Trades Club as an official address for his campaign activities. We wanted to put all of these allegations to the local MP here in the Calder Valley, Josh Fenton Glynn. We were told by the Labour Party, though, he was unavailable to be interviewed. In a statement, the party told us the party is not aware of any complaints made by Professor Bowden regarding misogynistic behaviour, and the constituency party is seeking independent financial advice. Neither HMRC nor the Electoral Commission has opened an investigation in relation to this matter. As for Professor Bowden, she resigned from the Labour Party at the end of last year. David Rhodes, BBC Look North, Hebden Bridge.
Now, a tree that had been the focus of protests in Otley has been felled today by Leeds City Council. The council said it had to come down to make way for a temporary footbridge across the River Wharf, but campaigners set up camp to protect it and said the authorities could have explored alternative options. Dan Bater reports.
After many months, this is all that's left of a tree that's been the root of controversy. The council say the tree had to be felled so they can repair the footpath along the nearby bridge. To do so, they have to install a temporary bridge so pedestrians can cross the river.
I'm gutted that a 110-year-old oak tree is going to be taken down, but it's more about the council running roughshod over processes.
It seemed like there are superior alternatives to the solution that's happening now.
No, it shouldn't be shut down, but what can you do against the councils?
Campaigners set up camp to protect the tree and held off an attempt to chop it down last week. And this morning, efforts continued to try and prevent the felling. Leeds City Council said it is most unfortunate that 2 trees had to be felled, and it's not a decision we've taken lightly. However, the only viable alternative would have been to reduce Otley Bridge to a single lane of traffic for at least 6 months. Some residents are relieved to see the tree finally felled.
Going to improve the traffic situation, it's a good thing.
The tree is lovely, I love this part, but it's time for the tree to go. Bridge is more important.
The congestion and the footpath on the bridge isn't safe. 2 reasons to sort of get it down and get the work done.
With the tree down, work can now begin to build the temporary footbridge so this one can be made safe. Dan Bater, BBC Look North, Otley.
Turning to sport now, when this weekend's Rugby League Challenge Cup third round starts tonight. York Knights host Hull Kingston Rovers. Sheffield Eagles are at home to Super League champions Wigan. And on Sunday, amateur club York Acorn face an even more difficult task against Hull FC. Their match will be staged at Featherstone Rovers ground to accommodate the expected big crowd. Acorn are determined to give the Black and Whites a proper challenge.
I think we've got 6, maybe 7 buses going from here that the club have put on for the fans as well, so we just want to make it as homely as we can for our lads really and give them a game that they deserve really. Normally we go with a game plan and who to spot, who to avoid basically, but we know we're up against it this week. We just want everyone to have fun and try and put their name on on their players, see if we can get a good shot on them and let them know who we are sort of thing. We've got a free rein really, we've got nothing to lose.
And I'm sure they'll impress. Now on to football, and there were mixed emotions last night at Chesterfield after midfielder John Fleck collapsed during the warm-up of their match against Doncaster Rovers. Fleck was taken to hospital and is now recovering following precautionary checks. The Spyrites went on to beat Doncaster by 5-2. Rovers remain in second position in the League Two table. Chesterfield move up to 9th place. Doncaster Rovers need to recover quickly in time for Monday night's FA Cup tie at home to Premier League Crystal Palace. Our only other team still in the competition at this weekend's 4th round stage are Leeds United. At home for the 2nd round in a row, Leeds tie against Millwall kicks off tomorrow at 12:15. And there'll be highlights on Match of the Day on BBC One on Saturday night. Now, I feel like I've just stepped into a children's picture book. Miffy is 70 years old this year, and her birthday is being celebrated at Leeds City Museum with a free special exhibition. The Little White Rabbit started life in a small children's book published in the Netherlands in 1955, and she went on to become a global brand. Kathy Killick has her story.
Slow down, Miffy, there's no rush.
Is everybody ready? Let me look.
Now let's choose a storybook.
Here's Miffy in her most modern guise, a TV animation winning a new generation of fans. But she started life 70 years ago in simpler times. The Little White Rabbit was the creation of Dutch illustrator Dick Brunner. He'd dropped out of art school to design book covers for his family's publishing firm and invented Miffy for his young son.
This style that he had was simple, but that limited colour palette, the lines. But Miffy would always be depicted front on, and just like really small changes in the eyes or the way the nose is depicted to convey her emotions.
The exhibition at Leeds City Museum celebrates Miffy's 70 years with original artworks by Brunner and a Miffy world, complete with models and videos.
Where Miffy really cracked it was in her appeal across the generations. I grew up with the book, so that's my excuse, but she has legions of young adult fans who just think she's cute, which she is. Hello.
And why not keep in touch with your inner child? It's not just for kids. As Uber fan Rachel Carter knows, she's been to see Miffy in Amsterdam and was one of the first through the doors this morning.
Miffy's character is quite sweet and innocent, and also the books are really relatable, I think, particularly for young children.
Does anyone worry about you, Rachel?
Sometimes I get some looks, but that's fine. Miffy's worth it.
Nientje is Miffy's name in Dutch. It means little rabbit, but doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
When we first started publishing the books in the UK, the publisher of Dick Brunner at that time said to Dick, I'm sorry, but Nijntje is not going to work in the UK. People simply are unable to pronounce it properly. And he agreed with that. And then the translator at the time, she then suggested that it should be a nice, friendly name, and she suggested Miffy. So, yeah.
50 languages and 85 million books later, here we are. Miffy is invincible, with a never-ending supply of new fans ready to be comforted and charmed. Kathy Killick, BBC Look North, Leeds.
Gorgeous. Now, finally tonight, get ready to scan a QR code on your TV. We want to hear from you about your local pub. To mark 40 years since EastEnders hit our screens, special events are being held at real-life Queen Vic's next week, including in Barnsley, as the show's famous bus goes on tour. If you're out tonight or this weekend, please do send us your photo showing life in your local, or even some video telling us why you love your pub so much, preferably sober. And you can scan the QR code on the screen to send a WhatsApp message, or email us at look.north@bbc.co.uk. Now, actually, Katerina, I went to the pub by myself this week.
Did you?
I did. I felt very liberated. Yeah, me and the dog toodled in. She dragged me in. Cappuccino.
Absolutely
living the
lovely.
dream.
I've not stepped into a pub for a long time because I've done dry January.
Oh.
And I think I might continue. I'm feeling good.
Well, I could recommend the White House in Roundhead. They do great dog treats.
Lovely. Good
Not that you
evening
have a dog.
Good evening to you. Well, it has been cloudy at times today. You can see from this first Weather Watchers picture here, we've had those brisk easterly winds that's pulled in a lot of cloud off the North Sea. But at times it has brightened up with some sunny spells. But the brightest thing I've seen today are these flowers on our Weather Watchers page. We're starting to see signs of spring. We've had daffodils in, we've had snowdrops. So the signs are there, but it's just not feeling like it. It's really cold, and we're going to hold on to those really cold, bitterly cold easterly winds right through next week. So as always, thank you for sending in your photos. If you'd like the chance to have your picture on the telly, you can send it in via social media. Details are on your screens now. So through this weekend, I think it's often going to be quite cloudy. There is going to be some showery rain through Saturday, but I think a drier day on Sunday, but it's still going to stay quite cold right through the course of next week. I mean, next Friday, we're looking at daytime highs only around 4 degrees. So you can see the isobars do spread apart this weekend. It's not going to be as windy. Some showery rain tomorrow. There could be some winteriness over the high ground. Not as wet on Sunday. And then we'll hold on to those easterly winds right through the course of next week. So here's your picture through this evening and overnight. There's going to be plenty of cloud. There'll be a few spots of drizzle followed by showery rain. You can see the white stuff here is the snow over high ground, very insignificant for us really, and we're looking at lows of around 2 or 3 degrees. So your next high waters really quickly, Scarborough at 12:42 tomorrow afternoon, Filey at 4 minutes past midnight, and then tomorrow morning it's going to be a really dull, gloomy start to the day. There'll be some showery rain. That rain's going to continue very on and off through the course of the afternoon, but it's going to be less windy tomorrow, but highs of only around 5 or 6 degrees. Slightly warmer for us on Sunday, but we're really going to hold on to that bitterly cold air next week.
So we won't be in the pub gardens just yet,
Not
Katerina?
just yet, indoors.
Thank you very much. That's it from us. Do have a lovely weekend. We'll be back with your late news and weather after 10 o'clock. Goodbye.